This weekend, more Republicans glommed onto the script first crafted by Republican strategist Karl Rove that questions about Hillary Clinton's age and the blood clot she suffered in 2012 will be fair game if she decides to run for president in 2016. But some key Democrats had her back.
She'll be 69 at the time of the 2016 election. If she gets elected and serves 2 terms, she'll be 77.
I think Karl Rove is struggling to be relevant.
Health and age is fair game. It was fair game for Ronald Reagan. It's fair game for John McCain.
In my view, she's in the prime of her political life.
Any presidential candidate or vice presidential candidate is going to have to answer questions about their health.
So what does this back and forth mean for Hillary Clinton? Let's bring in the editor-in-chief of Roll Call, Christina Bellantoni, and CNN national political reporter Peter. Christina, let me start with you. Last week, one Clinton aide responded to the original Rove allegations by saying, quote, "There are no words for this level of lying." But former President Bill Clinton noted it's only going to get worse. It doesn't sound like they're just going to sit back and take this.
No, definitely not. You're going to see the Clinton camp, if you will. They are not officially a campaign, but really they are acting like a campaign. Forcefully push back on this, but also just in general, questions of her competency, questions of how she served President Obama. You're seeing this really ramp up. But what's really interesting in this over the last week, you've seen a lot of the people that love Hillary Clinton come to her defense really, really vociferously. People hate Karl Rove among the fierce liberal Democrats. They like to have him as the boogeyman, so this gave them new energy.
Yeah, and I think Karl Rove, and I talked to some Republicans, they probably agree that he overstepped. I mean, the issue of a candidate's health and their age is absolutely fair game. It has to be approached a bit carefully with Hillary Clinton. I think political people think this because she is a woman. That's tough. But
why? Why does it have to be approached differently?
I mean, because they can easily, I think, turn it around. I mean, don't you think that people can easily turn around questions and say that they're under attack because of gender?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, I guess the question is, would a man be facing the same questions?
Yeah.
Clearly, Karl Rove said things in the original
totally.
charge that were not true. He said she had spent a month in the hospital.
Look at the Obama. Well, that gets my point. That this took what is a legitimate issue and pushes it into conspiracy territory. And you saw with Bill Clinton the other day speaking. He said that he used this to his advantage. He wanted to talk about it. He belittled Karl Rove in this way. I mean, this is something the Clintons are good when they're under attack.
Christina, listen to this. It was writing for CNN.com, Republican strategist Alex Castellanos. He wrote, quote, "Was Karl Rove's assault on Hillary Clinton's brain a political masterstroke that will make her presidential campaign more difficult, or a ham-fisted attack that will contribute to the persistent unpopularity of the Republican Party? The answer, to many a Republican's regret, is both."
Yeah, that sounds about right to me, because you've seen they do want to raise this issue. They want to start calling everything into question. You've seen this special investigation into the attacks in Benghazi. That has a lot to do with Hillary Clinton, right, happening on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, they said they want to bring her before the committee.
Yeah, and so that's part of it. But it also is something that Democrats want to get out there and talk about her, show her competence, show her record. What I'm watching for are a few things. Does she feel like she needs to release any sort of doctor's statement? I mean, John McCain waited very, very late in the 2008 campaign to do that when questions of his age were raised and his competency. Does she do that? Does she feel the need to do that? And then what does Barack Obama say about her? I mean, he's never really resisted an opportunity to take a swipe at Karl Rove, but he hasn't been out there necessarily vociferously defending her and her competency in his administration. Now this is going to start happening as she gets closer to deciding if she's running.
Let's turn to another possible 2016 presidential hopeful. Speaking Saturday at Grove City College in northwestern Pennsylvania, Jeb Bush, former Florida governor and possible 2016 presidential candidate, had this to say.
"If you feel inspired to serve your fellow citizens, don't let the ugliness of politics keep you from pursuing public office."
We're going to be parsing everything these people say from now until they declare or announce that they're not running. Am I to read something in there? He said, if you inspire to serve your fellow citizens, don't let the ugliness of politics keep you from pursuing public office.
I think Jeb Bush is being pretty consistent when he sounds out how he's going through this process and thinking about whether to run. I think it weighs heavily on him how difficult the presidential process would be, the day-to-day Twitter back and forth, how sort of petty and negative a presidential campaign is for a guy who hasn't really run for office since 2002. Yeah, but I mean, I talked to someone who was recently in a fundraiser with him, and he's saying the same things in private and public. He really wants to approach this, in a really earnest way and to say, if I can do this, in a sort of not negative, not too poisonous or toxic way. If he thinks he can get through it, then he's going to jump in.
And when I heard this, it made me wonder if it was a little bit of a message to his family as well, because we keep reading these stories where people are saying, well, the big concern about this is it going to be too harsh on, his wife, his children? What kind of family impact will that have? You've heard what Barbara Bush has had to say, his mother, about whether or not he should run. So is this a message of saying, well, it doesn't have to be so ugly, we can have a good time? And I will say I've talked to a lot of Democrats who very much like what he had to say about immigration and being an act of love of bringing your child to the United States illegally. And that's something that has some Democrats scared if he does actually run.
And it has some Republicans opposing. Yeah, very excited to oppose him.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. And again, he deeply cares about education, immigration. Common Core and immigration are not things that really jibe with the Republican base at this point. So again, I think as he looks at this, he's being very smart and deliberate and saying, can I get through this process and still have what I believe in be intact for a general election?
It's obviously this is a midterm year. Tomorrow is a big primary day in 6 different states, from Oregon to Pennsylvania. Peter, what are you going to be looking for tomorrow? What races are you watching?
Well, I just got back from a week in Kentucky. I think everyone agrees that Mitch McConnell is going to sail to victory.
The Senate Republican leader.
Senate Minority Leader in Kentucky over his Republican challenger, Matt Bevin, Tea Party backed. He's flamed out. He's run kind of a ham-fisted campaign. But the real race tomorrow is the race for the Georgia Senate runoff. The top 2 finishers in a 5-way race
for the
Republican Senate nomination in Georgia to take on Democrat Michelle Nunn. David Perdue, self-funding businessman, is the front runner. Everyone agrees with that. But the race for second place is what people are looking at. Congressman Jack Kingston, former Georgia Secretary of State Karen Handel are really vying for that spot. It's a real jump ball heading into tomorrow.
I don't want to overstate the case because the Tea Party has had a tremendous effect on the Republican Party and without question has moved the center of the Republican Party to the right. But it does seem as though the establishment is really beating back a lot of these Tea Party candidates.
Yes, absolutely. But you're right. It's moved them to the right. So the establishment has become more and more conservative over just the last 4-6 years. So one of the things that I'm looking at in Kentucky is how much does Mitch McConnell calibrate his message at all for a general election? We have a story coming out in Roll Call tomorrow looking at how the general election there has really already started.
Oh, yeah.
He's been running against Allison Lundergan Grimes, the Democratic candidate there that Democrats are very excited about for quite a while. Another one that I'm watching is actually in Pennsylvania, where you have 2 different races where Democrats looked like the front runners in a few cases. Allison Schwartz was running for governor. She's not doing very well in that primary to run against Tom Corbett, the governor, the Republican governor. And then in a House race to replace her, we have Chelsea Clinton's mother-in-law.
Marjorie Margolis.
Exactly. She was the front runner for a long time. It's looking like she's not doing very well there either. So it's going to be interesting what happens.
Clinton-backed candidate could lose that Democratic House primary right outside of Philadelphia, which would be sort of an interesting dynamic.
And that's ground zero for electoral politics in Pennsylvania, as you know, as I know very well. We can talk about that some other time.